Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to do a recap and review of Shazam, Fury of the Gods. And as the film begins, it's 2 years after Thaddeus Sivana's defeat at the end of the previous film. Hespera and Calypso, two of the daughters of the Titan Atlas, break into the Acropolis Museum in Athens, Greece, to steal the wizard's staff, which was broken by Billy at the end of the previous film. The two then take it to the wizard, who gave Billy his powers, imprisoned in the God's realm, and force him to repair the staff and activate its powers. Now, it turns out that folks like Calypso and Hespera were unable to enter the human realm as long as the staff was whole and functional. But because it was broken, the barrier keeping them from doing so went down. But now that they're in possession of it, there are things they can do with it that they can't do or couldn't do without it. So they wanted to acquire it. At the same time, in Philadelphia, Billy and the Shazamily, which of course is himself and his foster siblings, go on a rescue mission to save people from the collapse of the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. But they are later called out for its destruction because they were there, I guess, and the bridge fell apart, but they didn't cause it. But anyway, they kind of get blamed in the media. It turns out that the siblings are kind of drifting apart at home due to, various things. They're growing up and they're having personal interests and so forth. Billy himself is worried about being kicked out of the Vasquez family household after he turns 18 and ages out of the foster system. In a dream, as his hero self, Billy is warned by the wizard about Hespera and Calypso. He then relates what he was warned about to the rest of the gang, and they research the Daughters of Atlas. Freddie, Billy's foster brother and best friend, still being bullied at school, falls for a new girl named Anne, to whom he shows off his superhero self. Kind of. He doesn't show her that they're one and the same, but he lets her meet his alter ego. Hespera and Calypso then show up with the staff that they use to steal Freddy's powers. Anne is then revealed to be their younger sister, Anthea. Billy and the others try to save Freddy, but the daughters kidnap Freddy and place an indestructible dome around the city, trapping everyone inside. Freddy is then imprisoned along with the wizard in the God's realm. Hespera and Calypso then reveal that they want revenge because the wizard killed their father. Meanwhile, the gang enters the Rock of Eternity, where they encounter a sentient pen named Steve, interestingly, which they use to draft a letter to Hespera as a negotiation for Freddy's release. And this part of the movie is actually kind of funny because the pen just writes whatever you say. It doesn't hold for editing, so part of it's prose and part of it is just stream of consciousness, and it's very funny. Anyway, Billy then meets Hespera, and while the meeting is initially cordial, she and Calypso soon fight the Shazamily. Pedro loses his powers during the fight, while Hespera is captured and returned to the Rock. But she then easily breaks out and steals the golden apple from within the library that's at the Rock, which is the seed of the Tree of Life that they need to reestablish the God Realm. Meanwhile, Freddy and the wizard try to escape the God's Realm with Anthea's help, just as Hespera returns with the apple. The daughters argue as Hespera and Anthea want to use the apple to revive their realm, while Calypso wishes to plant it on Earth in order to conquer it. Freddy steals the apple, but is discovered, though Billy and the Shazamily show up and Freddy reacquires his powers. Billy and the Shazamily emerge with the wizard in the Vasquez home, where they reveal their secret identities to their very surprised parents. Calypso appears with a dragon named Ladon or Laden to acquire the apple. All but Billy then lose their powers in the skirmish, while Calypso retrieves the apple. Calypso mortally wounds Hespera and depowers Anthea when they object to her destructive plan. Calypso then plants the apple in the ground at a baseball park, which spawns the Tree of Life, as well as various monsters that attack the city. In a moment of self-doubt, Billy asks the wizard to revoke his powers because he's not up to the job of, being the champion. But the wizard assures him that he is a true hero and that he chose correctly. Heeding the wizard's words, Billy turns into his super self and flies off to stop Calypso, while the Shazamily enlists the help of unicorns, who are apparently the king of all beasts, to fend off the monsters in the city. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel persuades a dying Hespera to help him stop Calypso. Realizing that the dome reacts violently to his lightning, Billy lures Calypso to the park while Hespera shrinks the dome to contain them. Billy fights Calypso and Ladon before killing them both by overloading the staff with electricity and calling down lightning by saying, Shazam, destroying the tree and Calypso's army with them at the cost of his own life. Hespera acknowledges Billy as both a hero and a god before succumbing to her wounds and dying. Anthea brings Billy's grieving family to the god's realm for his burial. When the wizard is asked if there's nothing he can do with his powers or the staff to bring Billy back to life, he replies that the staff is no longer magical and that only a god can fix it and that there are no more gods left. But just then, Diana Prince, supposedly the last living being with godly powers, appears and repairs the staff, imbuing it with her power and using it to revive the god's realm and resurrect Billy. Billy then uses the staff to restore his siblings' powers. The Shazamily fixes up their home, which was destroyed by the dragon, while Anthea and the wizard take up residence on Earth. That's where the main story ends, but then there were a couple of credits scenes. In a mid-credits scene, Amelia Harcourt and John Economo attempt to recruit Billy into the Justice Society on behalf of Amanda Waller. In a post-credits scene, a still incarcerated Savannah encounters Mr. Mind once again, and it seems he's infuriated with him that he hasn't begun enacting their plan yet that they had at the end of the previous film. And that's all there was to this movie. So I did enjoy this movie. It's an enjoyable watch. Zachary Levi is very good in the part. I like this version of Captain Marvel. Very much like the Mary character. And I like the youngest member of the Shazamily in purple. I don't know what her name is. She's very funny because she's so young. And, I thought that Helen Mirren was excellent. She played it straight. And, even Billy says, you're very menacing. And she does come off very menacing in the film. But, she turns out to be a little bit more sane than Calypso. And I thought that was good because she wasn't a mustache twirling villain. She had, nuance and she had multi dimensions to her personality rather than being one dimensional. And I thought that was good because otherwise it would have been a bad use of Dame Helen. So I'm glad that she, that they wrote the character correctly for her to play it correctly. I thought the Anthea character was very cool. I liked that character very much. The Freddy character has a lot of great moments in this film, and I thought that was cool. I thought they did a good job with that. And I was very glad that we finally did get to see Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman one more time. And the interesting thing is that in this movie, they constantly refer to her as Wonder Woman, which she hasn't been referred to as up to this point in the DCEU films. It's always been Diana. And they finally referred to her as Wonder Woman for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. So I thought that was very cool. Now, that's the stuff I liked. And the stuff I didn't like is, I think this movie was about a half hour too long. I think some of the back and forth of the plot where the bad guys score one and then the good guys score one and then they're at a stalemate and then there's a final push, and an end battle. I think it went back and forth one too many times. I think there was a little bit too much ping pong of the main story. The main story ping pong one too many times, I think, and they could have cut some of that out. Although I liked a lot of the stuff with Freddie, I was a little bit confused because the main character of the story is supposed to be Billy Batson, and he's barely in it. It's all Zachary Levi. And, like I said, Zachary Levi is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun seeing a grown man act like a kid. A grown man with superpowers acting like a kid. It's very funny and cool. But Billy Batson's not in the thing. And that's not terrible by itself. But if at the same time you're going to showcase the second banana as a kid throughout the whole movie, that seems weird to me. And there were a lot of his scenes, not in addition to the scenes he had that were good, there were scenes that they had with the Freddy character that were kind of dumb. And his acting in some of them to me was like very amateurish, just, comical to the point of absurd. So I found his performance to be uneven. I found myself thinking at several points during the movie that it was a little weird that the bad guys, either Calypso after she turns on her other two sisters, or Hespera prior to that, spent a lot of time holding the staff that can take away the the Shazamili's, individual powers just by zapping them. And instead of zapping them, just held the thing and talked to them. You are just a boy. You are all just children with godly powers. You don't know what you're doing. You cannot stop what's coming. And blah, 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 blah. Bantering back and forth. When they have a thing in their hand that zoop, powers gone. Zoop, powers gone. Now, granted, they do that. They take away Freddy's powers. They eventually take away everybody's powers. But like, there's a whole couple of sequences where Calypso has the staff and she's bantering with Captain Marvel, who I guess they're calling Shazam now, rather than just zapping him. And at one point, she does go to zap him and he ducks behind a car so that it doesn't hit him, or he zigzags really fast and it doesn't hit him. And then another point, he like shoots his lightning towards her and it bumps up against the staff blast and he doesn't get hit. But there's a numerous occasions in the movie where she's literally just holding the thing and bantering with him instead of going shoot, 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 shoot. Keep trying to hit him, shoot, shoot, make him move like a duck in a shooting gallery until you hit him. Shoot, shoot, shoot. She's just holding the thing and talking to him. Like, why? Didn't make any sense to me. Why would you do that? Why would you bother talking to him? Just zap his ass. And obviously it's because the freaking movie would end. Right? So unless they found a way to get the staff back. But after she had already turned all the other, what were they going to do? So I thought it was a dumb mechanic that they introduced in order to, imperil the Shazamily and put them behind the eight ball, but then that they had to like nerf because otherwise the movie would end. So it was kind of dumb. I didn't really understand that. So I thought there was that one little kind of plot hole or plot contrivance that made some of the movie dumb. And I thought that there was too much back and forth. The plot ping ponged one too many times, and the movie could have been shorter. And that it focused a little too much on Freddie, and quite frankly, not enough on Mary, who, by the way, in this movie, looks exactly the same as her hero self and her not hero self. And even though the Shazamily is always in the news, because they even have a nickname, the Philly Follies. They're known in the city, right? They're in the press. The family, the parents don't realize that she's a superhero. So they either aren't very attentive, or they, just somehow never saw the news where Mary Marvel was featured for them to go, well, that's our daughter, So how does that make any sense? And so there were just a couple of silly things. One other complaint I have is that the Wonder Woman cameo was so very obviously filmed in separate shoots, such that Gal Gadot was not on set with Zachary Levi and the rest of the cast. It's so very obvious that they shot the cast reacting to Wonder Woman with a stand-in for Gal Gadot, and then shot scenes of Gal Gadot doing her part of the scene separately, and then dropped it in and blended it in. And it's so obvious when you're watching it. Now, the director himself has talked about that, but like, it shouldn't be obvious when you're watching it. It's one thing to know it, it's one thing to be able to tell. And you could totally tell, and it was just awful. And it's very unfortunate because there's a really good chance that that was Gal Gadot's last appearance as Wonder Woman. And it was just botched, in my opinion. And that's really unfortunate. And the post credit scenes, by the way, are a little confusing. Like, is this iteration of the character going to go forward in the DCU? Is that why they did the whole thing about the Justice Society? Although there was no mention of the Justice Society continuing in the DCU when James Gunn said what he said about Phase One. So I know that wasn't a complete outlay of everything he's planning to do, but it raises that question. And I mean, if so, I'm here for it. That's cool. But then why did they revisit the whole thing with the villain from the first movie just to sort of explain away why they didn't pick up from there? for this movie. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn these things at some point. One other thing I want to note before I close it out is that there was a cameo by actor Michael Gray, who played Billy Batson in the original Captain Marvel TV show that was on TV in the 70s. And he's wearing the same shirt that he wore on the show. And he says a line, something to the effect of, "Oh, you're awesome, Captain Marvel," which was very cool. Even though in the end, the wizard says that Shazam's name is Shazam. But yeah, that was really cool. If you are looking for a movie that's entertaining because there's action shots and superhero stuff and a lot of funny scenes, and you're a fan of the great Helen Mirren, who's excellent in this movie, then I would say go see it. But if that kind of thing isn't your thing, if you're looking for a movie that's really, really strong on story and that doesn't have stuff in it that kind of doesn't make sense, I would say you're not going to like this movie. I enjoyed it as an entertaining couple of hours, but it's not more than a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not better than a 7 out of 10. So there you go. That's all I have to say about this. I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.